Good morning and welcome to Guardian Talks on Guardian Television. This week, a federal high court in Abuja gave a judgment sacking the governor of Ebonyi State and his deputy, as well as the state legislators. To discuss this issue with me here are two legal practitioners. Live here with me is Mr. Festus Ogun. Mr. Festus, you're welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
And to join us via Zoom is Mr. Inigehe Effiong. Mr. Festus, when you heard the news that the Federal High Court had sacked the governor of Ebonyi State for the reason that he defected from the PDP to the APC, considering that these kind of legal consequences have never happened before, with the plethora of defections we have had in the past, what was your initial reaction?
Well, in all honesty, was not surprised about the decision of the Federal High Court. And this is predicated upon the fact that as far back as 2020, when Governor Umahi defected to the APC, I had written extensively on the constitutional implication of these things, that under our constitutional jurisprudence, defection should be carried out in a very cautious manner. I made mention as far back as 2020 when he defected that there is a constitutional danger ahead. In fact, as at that time, I was not even looking at it from this prism. I was making a very strong argument that his defection could constitute a gross misconduct that could lead to his impeachment. But people were not taking us seriously then. So I now wondered why, the PDP is just waking up to institute the action. But I think the judgment is very sound, and the judge should be commended for his, courage. Yeah.
Okay, now there is a lot of opinion to the effect that defection is not one of the provisions in the Constitution for removing a governor or even a president or any chief executive. That removal of governors, as provided in section, I think 171, does not include defection. And on account of that, they are arguing that it was an error. What is your view on that?
Well, there are dimensions to these issues. One thing that must be made abundantly clear is that in Nigeria, we do not have yet independent candidacy. Political parties sponsor candidates during election time. In fact, Section 221 of the Constitution makes it clear that during election time, you do not vote for candidates, you vote for parties. This position has been upheld in quite a number of cases, even by the Supreme Court. In the case of James Falike versus INEC and another, the Supreme Court made it very clear that when you vote during an election, the votes are not for the candidate but for the political party. Therefore, if the votes are for the political party, this is the reason why you see that we say, oh, this is the ruling party, because it is a party that is in power through the candidates. Now, what the candidates do is to hold the office in trust for the political party.
But you know that this decision has no precedent. And that's the reason why I started by saying it has opened a new vista in our jurisprudence. Do you think it will survive, the scrutiny of the appellate courts?
You see, this is where I cannot be completely confident. And my position is hinged on the fact that, yes, as far as I'm concerned, the judgment is sound. It is not only progressive, it is democratic. However, there are issues. In fact, there are procedural issues. One of the issues that got my attention was, why should that action be instituted in the Federal High Court when it was just a matter that could be instituted in the State High Court? I was wondering why they had to go to Abuja.
But the Federal High Court and State High Court have the same jurisdiction.
No, they do not have equally the same jurisdiction.
They are court of coordinate jurisdiction.
Yes, but there are some cases that should be heard exclusively by the State High Court and some that could be heard by the Federal High Court. The Federal High Court has some exclusive jurisdiction. So when we look at the jurisdiction of the Federal High Court, I do not see where it stands, because it is not a pre-election matter. In fact, in my view, it is not a post-election matter. It is a strictly constitutional matter.
Okay, so if you argue in that direction, then one could also say there's no way that kind of action could come in, because it's not a pre-election matter, it's not a post-election matter like you said. Then what will it be? Because Section 308 has already prohibited any action against the sitting governor. No,
I will not support that argument, because first, the governor, yes, under Section 308 has immunity from proceedings. However, my own position, my honest view, is that immediately he defected, he was no longer the governor. Immediately defected, he was no longer the governor.
On the basis of morality?
Not on the basis of morality.
Oh, so which law are we citing?
I am saying that, looking at the position of the Supreme Court in the case of James Falike versus INEC and another.
That decision distinguished between candidates and political parties.
Yes.
Saying political parties own the votes.
Own the votes, yes.
Yes, I agree with you.
Where the political party own the votes, immediately the candidate of that who is holding the office in trust for the party leaves that party, then he can no longer hold that office. So at that point, it seemed to me that the governor was holding the office unconstitutionally.
So what the point you're making is that the votes, since the courts have established that votes belong to the political parties, yes, that they are not transferable.
They are not transferable because, like I mentioned, the person in power is holding that office in trust for the political party. Okay, now, sound as that judgment could be for a lot of Nigerians, because I believe that you are not the only one who feel that the political harlotry in this country is excessive. So, how do you think that an aggrieved party will be able to get justice with the kind of politics we run, where state chief executive wear so much influence, which, when you place it, juxtapose it side by side with the agitation for judicial independence we are talking about, where head of course go to the chief executive hand in cap begging for funds and all the influences, do you think there's chances that any aggrieved political party could get justice in the state high courts, where this sensitive kind of matter is up? Well, if we want to talk about the rot in our judicial system, we are not just going to stop at the state high courts. No, we need a new judicial system. I'm not casting aspersion on any honorable judge or justice of the Supreme Court or justice of the Court of Appeal. No, I'm saying that if we are looking at it from, we cannot trust the judges in the state high court, we can only trust the ones in the federal high court, I think that would be a faulty argument, because the fundamental challenge with our justice system or judicial sector is not just about the state high courts. It is about the whole judicial system. We need to sanitize it completely. The mere fact that the constitution is silent does not mean the constitution supports it. And that is where the judiciary comes in.
Okay, so what's your major reservation about the judgment?
Well, my major reservation, right, is that when we look at the issue of jurisdiction, that's one area that I'm really curious about, the issue of jurisdiction. I am still not convinced enough why that judgment, why that action should be instituted at the federal high court. I'm not convinced enough. I feel it is not supported by law that action should be instituted at the federal high court. At the federal high court, not because it is neither a pre-election matter or a post-election matter, because I do not see the action as a post-election matter. I see it as a pure constitutional matter.
The judge can, and the rules of interpretation, can apply the mischief rule.
Well, because it will not be the intention of the drafters of the Constitution that when a political party has sponsored a candidate, the candidate will get to that
and transfer the vote to
to get to that party, to get to that office, and would transfer
the vote to
another party before the expiration of his tenure.
Okay, but you know that this decision affected the lawmakers as well. And now there's a provision in the Constitution too that provided that lawmakers could be removed from office for defecting.
Yes, that is clear. That is clear. That is not in doubt.
Okay, so now do you think while the governor pursues an appeal, the lawmakers should obey that judgment as it is now?
Well, the position of the law is clear as to where there is a judgment of the court. And the position of the law is that should a party get aggrieved by the decision of the court, then the party should file an appeal and ensure that a stay of execution is equally applied for in court, so that the execution of that judgment would pend until the determination of the appeal. I think that is what should be done, and I think that is what has been done.
But there's also decisions of court that once judgment is given, that judgment has to be given effect to while you pursue your appeal. The reason why most times when the lower court, maybe in criminal matters, sentences somebody, the person won't go to his house and say, I'm filing for an appeal and I'm asking for stay. You go to prison. We have precedents, I don't want to mention names, of senior politicians who've gone to prison before the appeal was finally determined at the Supreme Court, and they were exonerated. Meanwhile, they finished serving their prison terms. So why is political cases different? Why would they retain their offices and then file and asking for stay of execution?
Well, it is not just about political cases. These are constitutional matters. Let's take the position of the governor, for example. If a governor gets elected and the tribunal declares that the governor is not validly elected, the government is not going to leave office. The judgment has to be stayed in the interest of the Nigerian people. Now, they will go to...
Why? What's interest of Nigerian people? That's a political matter.
I will explain. By the time the judgment gets appealed, if the appeal court upturns the judgment, they have to go again. It has to be stayed. They will apply for it to be stayed. They go to the Supreme Court for its final determination. Because let's assume that a governor gets elected and the tribunal declares that the governor has not rightfully won the total vote cast and declares another candidate as the governor. Now, if that judgment is to take effect immediately, would have that we have to substitute who will be the governor or the acting governor.
Yes.
What's your reaction to that decision by the Federal High Court, Abuja?
My reaction is that the judgment of the Federal High Court by Justice Inigehe asking the governor and of course his deputy, the governor of Ebonyi State, David Umahi, and his deputy to step aside essentially from continuing in office on the basis of their cross-carpeting or defection from the PDP under which they were elected to the APC is one that would be very difficult to uphold on appeal or to sustain on appeal, because there are very fundamental constitutional principles governing assumption of gubernatorial positions or any other elective position. Primarily, before a party can even participate in the election, because the argument that has been made, and of course as reported in the media, that the judge relied on section 221 of the Constitution, which limits the involvement or participation of organizations or persons in certain political activities except by a political party, to say that the votes cast in the 2019 gubernatorial election in Ebonyi were cast for the PDP and not for the APC. And because the votes belongs to the party and the governor having left that party, he can no longer remain in office to enjoy the benefit that accrues from being elected on the platform of the PDP. For me, I do not believe the matter is as simple as that, because to begin with, when you look at the consequential orders that the court made, one, that either PDP nominates replacements, which they had announced that they had done, or INEC conducts fresh election. I find it's a bit problematic if you look at those orders. I do not believe those orders are grantable in law, with the profound respect to the court, because I don't see any constitutional basis under which a political party can nominate persons to occupy office of governor without those persons undergoing the rudiments of election.
Do you think it is the intendment of the drafters of the Constitution that politicians should be deflecting from one political party as frequent as they desire?
Well, intention is one thing, and consequence of defection is another thing. Now, what is clear, the intention that is clear under section 221 is that there is no allowance for independent candidature. That is, you cannot contest for office, any office, except you are sponsored, you are a member of a political party, and you are also sponsored by that party. That is the intention that is expressed, because you see, intention is not something that can be manufactured. Intention has to be construed from the Constitution itself. And yes, you need to belong to a party, you need to be sponsored by a party for you to run for office. But when you win, or when the party wins, and you leave that party for another, the Constitution has limited provisions on what should happen, and that limited provision is as it relates to the legislature, National Assembly, and House of Assembly. For the executive position of president, vice president, governor, and deputy governor, the Constitution doesn't say what should happen.
Thank you so much for honoring this invitation, Mr. Ogun. We are happy that you are here. I also believe that, the same way that decision took a lot of people by surprise, who knows, the appellate court may decide to, agree with him, and then that will become a locus classicus in our judicial, in our legal. So, because a whole lot of people do not think that decision will survive an appeal. A lot of senior lawyers and every other persons, but with provoking conversations, and in things like this, anything could happen. So we thank you for joining us. And we also thank Mr. Effiong, though we lost him halfway. We believe that it was technical issues. So Thank you, viewers, for being part of this program. Thank you for joining us. We do hope that you also join us in the next episode. Thank you so much and have a good day.